All right, and welcome everybody. This is Joseph Burke from I Strive to Thrive, and today we're having a live discussion on living with chronic pain. Now, I have some really cool stuff in store for you guys today. We even have a special guest from the hemophilia community, one of my really good friends and fellow advocates, Mr. Ryan Seeley. He'll be on here in just a few minutes. But now, if we haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Joseph Burke, and I am an advocate and a public speaker for the bleeding disorders community, and a survivor as well. And so I help to empower patients and caregivers to walk boldly in the mindset that you are not defined by your illness. All right. And so just a quick disclaimer now, I will be recording today's live stream for archiving. Just a brief rundown on today's events. I want to give some information about my story dealing with chronic pain and kind of share some imagery and some stories and accounts from my own life. And then towards the end of the show, or about the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to open up the seats and allow you guys to come in and maybe ask questions to Ryan and myself if you have anything, and like how we deal with chronic pain today in 2019. So I'd like to take just a brief moment and thank the amazing team here at Get Vocal for creating this amazing platform where I can come on here and get to do all of this really cool stuff and have these live streams. And really, the topics that are important to me, I get to share that here on a live stream. And this feed is awesome because it allows the knowledge and the education of what we're discussing to go out to so many people I can't even begin to imagine. And it's all because of the team here at Get Vocal. So hats off to Gisela, Alexander Riesenkampf, all the other Alexes, Alexander Duarte, and we got Lokesh, who's the programmer. All these amazing guys, Anton, and the whole rest of the delightful team here on this amazing platform of Get Vocal. Now, I'm going to be sharing my story of chronic pain and how I got to where I am today with my joints. Now, just to recap, this is my fourth health advocacy stream. All right, so this is number 4. And so previously I did a live infusion. The next one after that, I did another live infusion recap. And the last one was a particular one on Hemophilia, which I was talking about the future of genetic therapies for bleeding disorders. And Hemophilia, as of yesterday, I'm on week 13, just to update all of you from where I was previously. Week 13 on Hemophilia, and I've had no bruising, no bleeding episodes, no severe anything. So I'm doing really well on Hemophilia, and I'm very blessed to be on that drug. It's a pretty awesome drug. And it's really making its rounds around the hemophilia community. Now, chronic pain. How does chronic pain and a hemophiliac, how do these two coincide? And there's a lot of people that's like, well, if you got a bleeding disorder, where does the pain come from? Well, let me explain that to you. All right, so in a hemophiliac, when we overexert ourselves, right? And like a normal person, you go out and mow the grass or you do an activity and you may have a sore elbow or sore shoulder, and then you wake up the next morning and it's all gone and done. You don't have any problems. You're fine. You're ready to carry on your normal daily routine activities. And we do that kind of activity and that we start feeling that little pain in our elbow. We can tell we've overexerted ourselves. The elbow and all of the joints in your body are surrounded by a fluid-filled sac of synovium. All right, so when the synovium is what makes our bones kind of glide together. That is the lubrication, if you will, between all of our joints. Now, around the synovium is this membrane of capillaries. And this membrane of capillaries in a hemophiliac, when we overexert ourselves, of course, capillaries supplying blood into the joint, right? It ruptures inside of the joint, causing the joint to swell 3 to 4 times its normal size. Now, I can't begin to tell you how, oh my God, it's so excruciatingly painful. So here's what happens. Here's how chronic pain and hemophilia are linked. Years and years of injury after injury. As the body tries to get rid of the blood in the joint, because that's a foreign body inside of a joint, blood shouldn't be in synovium fluid. So it shouldn't be there at all. And as the body tries to get rid of that, it leaves behind mineral deposits and iron deposits and calcium deposits and all this other stuff that makes your bones almost fuse together. All right. So not only do you have the chronic pain from an active bleed when you're in the middle of it, years and years of trauma, damage, and injury, you have chronic pain for the rest of your life. And so, hey, what's up, Dre? It's good to see you, my friend. I want to say a quick shout out to all my friends, Lindsay Badger, Big Bad Brad, and all the amazing team here at Get Vocal. I hope you guys are sharing this out. We're actually going out on Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook today as well. So pretty excited about that. But so that's a really now you've heard me talk about the complications of having a joint bleed in a hemophiliac. Now I think we're going to spend a couple minutes. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And I had the ability this past summer to have several, and I do mean several, x-rays done of my body. All right. So first up, excuse me, we have the illustrious elbow. Let's look at that. All right. So this is an x-ray of my elbow. All right. So the bottom one is me. The top one is what a normal elbow would look like. All right. So if you see the elbow, if you look at the normal one on the top, you see that the elbow, the radius, and the ulna, and they have plenty of room there in that joint to glide and move around. You see that? It's a very healthy joint. Now you get down to mine. This is my right elbow. Not only is my right elbow permanently fused at the radius and ulna, but it is completely destroyed due to years and years of damage. Because I'm right-handed, that would make my right elbow a target joint because I am right-handed and I do everything right-handed. So that's why that elbow is completely messed up. So if you look, there's at the bottom of the joint there, there's a little bit of a sliver of bone there, and it's just all, man, it's gone. It's wasted. So that's one x-ray. Let's move on to the ankle. Let's have a look at the ankle here. All right. So the top again, we have a normal, healthy ankle, plenty of room between the bones, the metatarsals, the metacarpals rather. And if you see, everything's healthy and active and gliding. But now you get down to mine. This is my right ankle, my bad ankle. Again, I'm right-handed, so everything's on the right dominant side. I have a semi-fused ankle with arthropic mutations, which basically means that my bone has mutated and fused together almost permanently in that area. There's no synovium. There might be a little, but there's limited range of movement. That means you might be able to move your joints, your ankle maybe 80, 60 degrees. I can barely move mine maybe 20 degrees. So that gives you an idea. So as we're using our bodies and as we're doing normal routine daily activities, these normal routine daily activities for us, man, it really sets and makes a toll on our bodies. And we have a huge difficulty in trying to overcome that. Sometimes it's weeks of recovery. Let's look at another view of the ankle. This is a lateral x-ray. And so, excuse me, you can see here, now this is a normal one on the left. That right ankle is looking pretty good on that, whoever that normal guy is. Then you get on the one on the right here. So the one on the left's normal, the one on the right, you can look at that and you can see actually where I've got it circled there. You can see that the bone on bone, and it's completely fused with with very much hemophiliac arthritic mutations right there. And that means that joint has permanently fused together due to all the injuries over the time in my life. And I'm going to tell you why I got all these injuries here in just a second. There's a method to the madness. So I got one more view here for you. So this is an x-ray of my knees, both of my knees. Okay. So the one on the right is a normal knee. That would be my normal knee. Okay. You can see there's plenty of space in between those joints of the tibia and the fibia. You have plenty of movement and range. I have a healthy knee on the other side. But then you get on the left-hand side. So where I've had to compensate my walk and limp most of my life, my bone is actually grown inward 30 degrees. And it's almost permanently fused at the kneecap, which is crazy. And so you can see that the patella is just kind of hanging out there in no man's land. It's kind of crazy, the kneecap, and there's a lot of damage. Now let's take a look at that from a lateral view, right straight on. And this is really the big one right here. Again, left is normal. No, yes, it's reversed on my end. So if you look on the right side, that's my left knee. That's a normal. But if you look on the left side, that's my right knee. Look how fused and look how the bone has completely bubbled out. There's a lot of damage there, and it's just really taken its toll as from hemophilia. So in hemophiliacs, as we bleed, we overexert ourselves. The joint ruptures, basically. And if you're looking at the right side, that left knee image, it's reversed. I know. I do apologize for that. It's just the way the x-rays came out. So you got plenty of fluid there. You got plenty of room and space and cushion. You can use that joint, and it's very mobile. And then you get on the left-hand side, which is a right view of my knee. It's like completely damaged. And my right knee was a huge problem for me in school growing up. So many times I would be injured and I would try to be a normal person, and I couldn't be a normal person. And I wanted to play like a normal kid, and I couldn't play like a normal kid. It was very complicated growing up in that kind of environment. And so here's the premise of what I'm trying to get to today, is that due to the lack of education that I had back in those days in the early 80s, my mom and dad didn't acquire that information. They didn't acquire that knowledge about, hey, you might want to let your boy take the sidelines in PE class, or you might want to let him, not play basketball or try to be like the other kids. He's going to end up damaging himself permanently. Now, if I had Doc Brown's DeLorean from Back to the Future, I would go back to 1985, literally, and say, "Hey, Joe, why don't you knock it off for a little bit? When you're hitting 40, this is going to be very painful for you." But unfortunately, I don't have that luxury, so I have to live with what's going on, basically. So I want to say hello to Ellis and to ET that just came in. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for joining the stream today. And so as you can see, though, as hemophiliacs, and I'm going to show you my elbow right here. So this is my elbow, that elbow that we just looked at. So I can only move, as you can see, I got muscle wasting here because I can't move the joint. So I want to move, that's maximum out capacity. That's as far as my elbow will go out. That's as far as my elbow will go in. That's as transparent as I can be. It's permanently fused. So if I look at it from the side, you can see it's got all like crazy looking, just from all the many years, and it's all bubbled out right here. And that's the joint, how the joint is permanently fused. Now, I normally don't do this, and this is kind of weird for me, but I'm going to do it just for the sake of today's broadcast. I'm going to show you a view of my knee. All right. So this is, I hope you guys are sitting down for this. This is crazy. I've had doctors look at my knee and they're like, okay, how in the heck are you walking right now? So as we go live to our mobile cam right here. Hello. All right. So we're going to look at my knee. First, I'm going to show you the normal knee. All right. So look, normal knee, right? Everything's good. I can move it. It looks like a normal knee, right? All right. So here is my bad knee. So you can see the size comparison, the contrast between the two. This one is heavily damaged, and it's taken its toll, and it's completely fused. I got muscle wasting on the calf muscle here. I've got muscle wasting here on the inner thigh, and it's just really taken its toll, and it's just been through a lot. So that's a lateral view, real-time view of my knees and my crazy. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm showing you that. You know what? For the sake of science, I'll do it, So, but I think what we're talking about today, though, now that you see how hemophilia is linked to chronic pain, you can understand now why we have to look to alternative and methods and ways to treat our pain, because it's hard to be productive if you're not being able to treat your pain. And so I want to invite one of my great friends. He's a really awesome dude, and I got to tell you, he's done so much for me. Before I unlock the seat and I welcome him in, I want to build him up because he is just this awesome. There was a time in my life when I first moved to Florida, I was going to another treatment center for my hemophilia. There's like multiple treatment centers that are federally funded, and they have all the information and treatment readily available for you. I was going to another one, and man, I had some really bad experiences. And I called Ryan one day. I was like, dude, I need some help. I need some mentor. I need some guidance. He's like, you need to go up to this other one up here. You need to go up to Gainesville, Florida. And I want to say to you, Ryan, man, that was one of the best things you've ever told me in my life, because honestly, I got hooked up with some amazing doctors up there and it changed my life. So that's for you, Ryan. But Ryan is a public speaker, communicator, hemophilia advocate, health coach, patient caregiver, mentor of an entire community of bleeding disorders. Ladies and gents, Mr. Ryan Seeley, come on in. Drop in the seat, my friend. What's up, friend?
Hey, Joseph. How are you?
You're looking good, man. I like the hat.
Thank you. It's part of my very overwhelming collection of hats.
You have an overwhelming collection of hats?
Hats and bow ties.
Nice.
I'm not wearing one today because I'm recovering from a broken wrist, so I can't tie them. But yeah, it's kind of my thing.
I got to ask you. So, any the stuff I was talking about just then, did that any of that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. And I come from a generation before you, so the outcome is the same, but for different reasons. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my background and where I came from, and kind of meet you where you left off. So my name again is Ryan Seeley. I was born in the late 60s, the youngest of 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. My maternal grandfather had hemophilia, so naturally my mother and her 2 sisters were carriers, and naturally a male offspring of a female carrier has a 50-50 shot of inheriting the recessive gene for hemophilia. Mm-hmm. So out of the 4 kids, my oldest brother was born with hemophilia. My next brother was not. My sister was not affected. And then, of course, when I was born and they saw that it was a baby boy, they knew to test. And, immediately at birth, and sure enough, I was born with moderate hemophilia A. That being said, while I'm diagnosed technically a moderate, I'm on the borderline between moderate and severe, and I have bleeding patterns like a severe. So therefore, I receive treatment as if I were a severe. Even though my levels go above the severe at times, everybody's body is different, and it has something to do with the way I metabolize the medication, has something just to do with being unique. And that being said, I'm like everyone. I'm a one-of-a-kind person. I'm unique. No matter how many times you see me or talk to me or meet me, you'll probably learn something you didn't know before. And for that reason, I've learned in my life never to assume or judge people or situations based on solely first glance. Because I don't have any idea, what I'm dealing with. I'm only seeing a snapshot. So, that leads into what we'll talk about later as far as chronic pain, and how outside looking in, it's easy to say this, or this, or you should be doing this, or this, or you should not be doing this, or this. But you and I both know that it cannot be cookie cutter that way, because your pain is different than my pain, and for different reasons. So being born in the late 60s, there was not factor available like we have today. In fact, when I was born, the only treatment that was available was a blood product derived from human plasma called cryoprecipitate. And a wonderful doctor named Graham Poole, discovered that there was this protein pooling, no pun intended. Her name was Poole, and she discovered this pooling protein at the bottom of a bag of plasma that was donated. And she began researching, and she found out that it did help control bleeding episodes in people with hemophilia. So that's the treatment that I got from birth until the 1990s. My brother, on the other hand, was 16 when I was born. So he was, again, from a very before generation. So there was a 16-year gap. So he was born in 1952. There was no treatment available back then. So he spent months and months in the hospital, had multiple joints all over that look like yours that you pointed out on the x-rays. And so it's a wonder that he lived at all, because his life expectancy when he was born was about 10. When I was born, the life expectancy was about 18 to 20. Yeah, I'm very proud to say that last November I turned 50. And, I never thought that I would make it to 50, because my whole life I was told, or we were told, or we assumed that, it would take my life. Yeah. So by some grace, I was spared all that. And then something to remember about the blood products, when cryoprecipitate was formed, it took about 1,000 donors to donate a pint of blood for them to strip out that protein that pools in the bottom. So every bag that I would get for a transfusion, which was a 15-hour day, It would be frozen. We had a 3-hour drive from rural Virginia into Washington, D.C., where I was treated at Georgetown University Medical Center. And they would not thaw the product until we got there. So we had to wait several hours for it to thaw. And then it was done on a manual drip. And I still remember the drip, 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 drip all day long. And then another 3-hour drive home. And then we might have to do it again and again and again.
That drip sound, let me ask you this, because from one hemophiliac to another, I've never asked this question. You know that you can close your eyes and you can hear that sound in your head, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So here's from my perspective, because we're about a 15-year difference between you and I, or maybe 11 years, I think. I can close my eyes and I can hear the sound of my mom's wedding ring rolling that bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It just,
well, it's part of us. It's part of us. It's part of our psyche. And, I don't think that if you haven't gone through it, if you haven't gone through something like that, it wouldn't resonate with you. But you resonate with a different sound than I do because we received different treatments. Right. So that being said, in the early 80s, factor concentrate became available, and it was the new wonder drug. The doctor talked to my mom. By this point, I was a teenager, and my brother was in his 20s. So for him, that was freedom. He didn't have to go to the hospital anymore. He could go to the refrigerator, pull out the bottles that you just described, mix it up, and keep going. And he was, polar opposite of me. He was a biker, a tattoo artist, kind of a, hell bent on doing everything that you shouldn't be doing, but he lived his life to the fullest kind of thing. So as a result, he had a lot of bleeding problems because he did a lot of things he wasn't supposed to do. Right. But to get one dose of this factor concentrate, you could be exposed to hundreds of thousands of donors, because what would happen is they would donate the blood. It would all go into a big vat, and the manufacturer would take out what they needed and create this product. So my brother was infusing several times a week, being exposed to hundreds of thousands of donors each time. Well, most people may not be familiar with it, but unfortunately, they were not screening the blood during that time period. And if one donor was HIV positive or had hepatitis C, that infected that entire vat and all of those doses that went out. So it only took one. And unfortunately, but my mom was talking to this doctor that I had, and we trusted him. And he said, you should do this for him. We can teach you how to do it. You won't have these 15-hour days. And my mom's like, absolutely not. It just because it's the newest, latest, greatest thing does not mean that it's safe. We don't know what it's going to do. We don't know side effects. She's like, I would rather keep him on what we know helps, even though it doesn't help 100%. And you come back and talk to me in a year. Well, in a year, most of our community was infected with HIV and or hepatitis C, including my brother. And I don't remember anybody ever telling us or warning us about what could be in those products, because I don't think that the providers and the clinicians knew the scope of this, at least not in the beginning. And but I do remember my brother calling in 1986 saying that he had gotten a knock from the health department and he was diagnosed HIV and hepatitis positive. Yeah. And unfortunately, he passed away 5 years after that at the age of 38. I
got a letter from Cutter Pharmaceuticals.
Oh yeah, well,
1983. My mom got.
We didn't get anything. We didn't get anything.
That letter that went around like 1983 is like, if you have these lot numbers and they match up, and they had somebody manually highlighted the lot numbers on the paper. It's crazy,
right?
And my mom, somewhere in her stash cabinet, has that letter to this day. But that letter kind of changed my life and perspective.
Oh, I'm sure. And mine changed as well, because while they began testing me and I tested HIV negative, while that good news, spared me from the trauma of HIV directly, it didn't help because my brother passed away. And then I saw everybody around me dying. And
I have three male cousins pass away.
And I would not go and get treatment because I did not know what was going to be in that needle that was going in my arm. So I just sat there and dealt with knee bleeds, hip bleeds. I've had 30 bleeds into my left hip in 50 years. So it's like your knee, it's completely obliterated. And unfortunately, because everybody's like, oh, get a hip replacement, easy fix. Well, for me, because I'm unique, I process the factor or the synthetic factor differently. So I do not respond to prophylaxis treatment like everyone else does. So we've
Right.
had to kind of get me to the best that I could be. And a hip replacement is too high risk. They're not willing to touch me. So as a result, that leads into our discussion today. You know, I have severe chronic pain and mobility issues due to hemophilic arthropathy, which is basically damage and arthritis, osteoarthritis caused by bleeding into the joints. So both knees, right ankle, both hips, the left being the worst, lower spine,
Oh my gosh.
both elbows. Now, mind you, they're not all as bad as yours. The hip is most closest to yours. The others just give me problems. But on
Yeah.
top of it all, I also have psoriatic and rheumatoid arthritis, which affects all of the joints, all the tendons. So imagine having tendonitis in every tendon in your body. So, you know,
Oh.
between the two, I deal with severe chronic pain, and it's not been an easy road to manage, as you talked about. So
And you know, for me, I think I don't really understand the physiology of how I'm able to go to like Walt Disney World and walk 6-7 miles a day at Magic Kingdom or whatever on this knee. And I asked my my orthopedic surgeon one time. I was like, so so if this knee is this bad on this X-ray, and it's literally bone on bone, there's no space, how am I able to do that? And his only scientific explanation for that was, you have used and worn out that knee so much, you have frayed the nerve endings in your bones.
that's true.
And I'm like,
Yep.
whoa. So I don't even feel it anymore.
Well, and you're lucky, because what happens is, and by the way, full disclosure, I'm a retired nurse.
Yes.
So
I was going to tell you to say that.
yeah, anything that I'm telling you today, I don't want anyone taking as medical advice, because this is just my story and how it affects me, and everyone's different.
Right.
So anything that you and I say today is more of a guidance to maybe open a line of dialogue with a physician,
Yes,
to find
exactly.
what's best for you. But you know, back to the chronic pain and the mobility issues, I was in the business world for 22 years as a senior management IT computer executive. And I went back to college in my late 30s and became a nurse. And that was my dream job. Like, it was my calling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going 90 to nothing. And mind you, as an adult, I hadn't had that many bleeding issues, really, because I was sitting in an office for 20 years. I didn't participate in sports. I didn't work out. I had a pretty sedentary life. So, you know, bleeds can happen whether you overexert yourself, or you can just be sitting here and wake up tomorrow and have a bleed in your joint. There's really no rhyme or reason, and everybody's different. And most of my bleeding episodes have been related to spontaneous bleeding, because once a joint has a bleed, it remembers. And after it has several of the same type of bleeds, it doesn't forget it all. And then it just decides, oh, today I'm going to bleed. And the nerves that you mentioned that do go to the bone, you either have where they're just completely shot, where you don't feel a thing, or they're scarred at the point of memory of pain. So
Yes.
they remember the pain, and that's why you have chronic pain signals going to your brain. So
Now, I'm going to ask a really unique question here.
mhm.
I'm starting this out because, you know, we're at the halfway point of the show. I can't believe we've already went 30 minutes. It's crazy. But opioids.
Yes.
Is there a stigma against opioids today for individuals like you and I who require chronic pain management? Or do you think it's overhyped? Or do you think that, you know, the media is not true and accurate in their portrayal of what's going on?
Well, I think it's a little bit of everything you mentioned. First, I personally have experienced stigma because I do take opioid pain medication, and I have for over a decade. It's scheduled. I don't take
Yes.
more than what's scheduled. It does not get me high. It completely really makes me have the ability to have some productive life. You know, I had to give up my career in nursing because I couldn't be on my feet 12, 16 hours a day. I had to give up that path, and now I'm using those skills to help people in a different way. However, that was a big thing for me. And, you know, I had to look at that like, okay, well, I can't do this. You know, I have a motto in life called detours, not derailments. You know,
I like
adversity is going
that.
to hit us at every point, no matter what. We don't have control over that. We can either sit and let it derail us completely, or we can detour and keep going and get through it somehow. Find a different way, find a different treatment, find a different
Yeah.
doctor, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, keep trying, because it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you're stuck. So that
Do you ever feel like when you go to the pharmacist and you hand them that slip that you're automatically being judged? I feel that way.
I don't now, because I have a really good pharmacist at a national retail chain that I go to get my oral medications, and they get it because they're close to the HTC, the treatment center. But in the past, I have gotten the look down your nose,
and
like,
it is
drug
so
seeker.
demeaning.
Well, it is. And so back to your question, yes, there's a stigma for people who are legitimate pain patients. Do we have an opioid epidemic in our country? Absolutely. You know, I've dealt with addiction with people that I care about deeply, directly, one-on-one, and not just opioids, but other drugs. And it's a nasty thing to go through, and it's a disease. It's not a choice of theirs. It's a disease, and they can't help it. But what we can do is help them. So I think that, yes, there is an epidemic because opioids were overprescribed and they were handed out like candy, and doctors didn't know any better. Like you mentioned earlier on in this, that you weren't educated about the long-term risks. Well, I think they were just trying to make their patients feel better. And I'm saying that from a retired oncology nurse perspective. My patients had the worst pain that you will ever have in your life. And pain management was key. I mean, we had to make sure they were comfortable. There's no reason that people like you and I should be laying in bed, writhing in pain, when we have not only opioids, but we have alternative therapies, which we can talk about in a second, at our disposal. But I think that people need to stop and think about before they judge. Like I mentioned before, I don't judge anyone based on what I first see. You know, it's not up to me to say that person's a drug seeker or they're an addict or they need it. I don't know. You know, I only see that one snapshot. So I'm not going to pass judgment on anything, let alone something like this. And I think having gone through this journey like you, it gives us a better perspective to be more compassionate and empathetic towards other people, because we know what it's like. And, you know, yes, there are people that are at risk for addiction, and that's up to their physician to decide whether they should get opioids or not. But yes, I have gotten the stares, I have gotten the judgments, I have gotten people blatantly telling me, you're wrong, you shouldn't be taking that, you should be doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, that's very easy for you to say from a computer screen when you don't live with me day to day. You don't know what it's like for me to take an hour to get out of bed every morning, or to use a walker or a cane that I have to use at times. And then other days I can do like you kind of save up. The reason you can do it is because, number one, your nerve endings are dead and you don't feel the pain and your body's acclimated, but also it's a mindset. You may or may not consciously do it, but you save up your energy so that you have that activity. But trust me, you pay for it afterwards, don't you?
Heck yeah.
You know?
Heck yeah.
So we have it's a give and take and a trade-off of whether we want to do stuff or not.
And you know, I think you said something very briefly in what you were talking about was the responsibility that's put onto the patient to be able to take the medication. We're talking about opioids, you know. So I do take opioids at night for bed, because here's the problem is, if I don't have any kind of pain medication in my system at night, I have, well, you've seen my ankles and my knees earlier. I have restless leg. And so my knees and my legs are just hurting and aching. I can't get comfortable. I'm tossing and I'm turning all night. I can't sleep.
Right.
Because my body, even though my knee is dead in terms of the nerve endings, my body's like, hey, I'm still active. I'm hurting here. And then that creates a whole
it's a vicious cycle, because then you pay the next day and it just goes around and around.
Yeah.
I'm in that same boat.
So we talked a little bit briefly about opioids, and I think the message here is what we're trying to drive home is there's nothing wrong with the drug itself. It's the responsibility of the patient to take it as prescribed,
and a physician to give it to patients who need it appropriately. You know, and I think that one thing I will want to say, and then we can move on, is that you know, we have a lot of lawmakers that are going after the opioid epidemic, which is great. We want to provide help. Do I think they're going about it the right way? Personally, no, I don't, because people like you and I are getting caught in the crossfire, and we have to jump through so many hoops to be able to have that one pill at night that we desperately need. And it's not fair. And pain patients that are legitimate are paying the price of others, you know, misuse and others' irresponsibility of prescribing and overprescribing. So
I understand. And so I think with that, I think it's basically a responsibility of us to be accountable to ourselves. And I will speak from experience without mentioning any names. I had some family members who were parallel to my life. You know, they basically had what I had everything I had, etc. But they dove into the opioid crisis. They dove into that, and they got it. They took more than they should, and they ended up costing them life. So from my perspective, I've seen the drastic contrast of being responsible to not being responsible, to not giving a dang and just doing whatever feels right.
Right.
And I think the message here is that, you know, as long as we do things with respect to the drug as prescribed, we should be okay. Just, you know, it's the word opioid today has kind of become a taboo word in the medical industry.
It absolutely,
and it shouldn't be that way.
And society in general, it's become.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't, because I rely on the drug. And so I have daytime drugs, which we'll talk about here in a minute, which is some good stuff, thanks to Florida legislature. We also have some nighttime drugs. So, I mean, I have to have this stuff to do what I do because I'm constantly on the go. I'm on the go 24/7. Mm-hmm. So one of the ones, so we talked a little bit about addiction. Now, if you're in the room or you're watching this live stream on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope/Twitter, if you want to come over to getvocal.com, GETVOKL.com, you'll see this stream live on the top of the front page. Come join us. If you have a question about chronic pain or something from your experience, we're going to open up the seats here in the last 10 minutes of the show to maybe allow you to come in here and ask a question or two, and you can interact with us in real time. So be thinking about your questions and come on in here in about 15 minutes, and we'll do that for you, okay? So we talked a little bit about addiction. And the proper use of opioids, I think it's just being responsible. The patient needs to take it as prescribed. That's the big bottom line. So let's talk a little bit about art therapy. How can art therapy help with chronic pain from your perspective?
Well, for me, I have what I call, and maybe they're officially called this, but I have adult coloring books. I'm not an artist. I went the musical route when I couldn't take gym or PE class.
What do you play?
Or sports. Well, I don't anymore, but I played the flute for 20 some years. Was the first chair flutist through junior high and high school, won all kinds of awards, joined an ensemble after high school. Then I got carpal tunnel and had to have 3 surgeries, and that ended that.
Wow.
But it was a very special time in my life, and it saved me. And it was an alternative. It was a detour. I didn't have to let life derail me and sit at home. When I couldn't march in the band because my knees bled, I decided to become the manager. I still went to all the games. I still wore the uniform. I sat in the stands and played with them. I just didn't march on the field. So rather than derail and miss out, I detoured and found a spot and made a spot. And, you know, that was something my parents ingrained in my brother and I, that if something's not working, try something else, you know, find something to take its place. And I think you and I both have done that in our lives. And, you know, managing chronic pain is a big part of us being able to do those things. So art therapy, you know, back to your question, you know, I'm not an artist, but for me, art therapy, when I get one of those books, I have this huge collection of colored pencils, and I just sit there, and it kind of is a diversion. It doesn't get rid of the pain, but it helps me focus on something other than the pain. Right. And there's a difference, you know, there's a big difference between a medication removing the pain from your mindset and your body to something that's a diversion. And that's what I think we're talking about when we speak about alternative therapies.
I think you hit another one there too, I've been very blessed with a couple of talents, whether it's creating music or artistic drawing. And I had the privilege, my father would bring me these Marvel comics when I was at University of Kentucky Hospital during my long tenure there. And I was like, oh man, these are really cool graphics. And I taught myself how to draw through the comics. And I picked up all these books on how-tos and stuff. And so art became, here, you can imagine these little examination rooms at University of Kentucky. You're in these rooms for 8 hours hooked up to an IV, gamma globulin. You know all about that, I'm sure. So here I am hooked up to this thing all day. It's dark by the time we get out. And you want to get out of that four-walled room, and you can't. You got to figure out a way to push through the craziness and the chaos. And so drawing, you know, figuring out, Mom would buy me these giant sketchbooks from the craft store, and I would like draw, and I would practice and practice and practice. And for me, though, I think it's the symmetry. Your mind is focused on what you're doing, and it's not focused on the pain that's in your body.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And also too, musically. So I have 4 albums out on, I'm not shameless plug, I guess, but on Spotify and iTunes, all that stuff, but you can just find it if you want. But when I'm hurting and I'm in pain or I'm emotional, there's something weight on my heart. There's something heavy. I'll write a piece of music. And out of that will come this. If you listen to the music and the songs, they featured a lot of nice stuff on Bloodworks. You know, Bloodworks that they have at the NHF.
Yep. Wonderful.
So I'm on a lot of those playlists there sometimes, but and so it's a way for me to like purge all of that out of me. You know, if I'm going through a really bad bleed, or I'm going through a really bad season, or I'm in a lot of pain for this period of time, I use that art, that skill, that craft. It doesn't get rid of the pain, like you said, but it really helps me deal with it.
Well, exactly. And then, for me, I picked out books that are things that I relate to. Like I follow Buddhist principles. So I've got a Buddhist type book that has Buddhas and malas and mandalas and all those things where you can get really creative with the colors. And I love mid-century antiques, 50s and 60s. So I have several mid-century of iconic furniture pieces and other items. So like you said, and then as far as music goes, I'm not into music anymore per se as a performer, and I've never been a singer. You don't want to hear me sing, trust me. But
Same.
But I do use music as a diversion, as an alternative therapy, where I've got certain playlists that have songs that make me go back to different times in my life with fond memories or fun memories or even sad memories. And like you said, that listening to that helps me purge what I'm going through now. And, along with the Buddhism, I do meditation as an alternative therapy. And that, again, is also very calming and relaxing. And it's a diversionary tactic, and it helps you purge and focusing on something positive. And you don't have to be a Buddhist to meditate. Yeah.
You hit on a really cool thing there too. And I want to kind of just stop there for a second. And prayer and meditation, no matter what it is in your spectrum,
it
is such a really calming way to, like, if you're anxious, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling all of this emotion and stress and pressure and pain, just find, they call it the moment of Zen or your prayer time or whatever. I'm telling you, man, it really does help.
It does.
It really, just to find and focus in on that one calm, quiet moment.
Yep.
Where you can just, you can almost hear your heart beating.
Well, yes. And it doesn't matter what road you take or what car you're driving, as long as you get to where you need to be. And that's a moment of peace. To me, it doesn't matter how you get there. It's just that using that as a tool. And it does, like you said, we haven't really touched too much on side effects of chronic pain, which could be anxiety. It could be depression, which I deal with both. I take medication for both. I've gone through therapy for both in trying to get help with it. And, anybody listening today, if you're depressed or anxious and, you need somebody to talk to, people like Joe and I are here. All you have to do is reach out. We've got a very strong community online. There's lots of resources. So I would say just know that you're not alone. And we've tried to share our experiences today, and everybody's got a different one. So there's people that can help. And help
exactly what you just said. You're not alone.
Right.
And I think that, boom, that's the bottom line right there. So a couple more we have here. For some, this might be a little bit of a contradiction to what we're talking about, but physical activity and exercise. Now, if you're in a spot or in a place where your joints aren't near as jacked up as mine, no pun intended, but if they're not as crazy as mine, you can actually use those joints and build up a little muscle. Now, the theory and the hypothesis here, well, it's not a hypothesis, it's actually proven fact. If you build up muscle around the joint won't bleed because it can be able to withstand due to the muscle and the tendons and just everything that you've done there and you've built up together.
Absolutely.
And so it creates this, I think of some of the amazing troubadours in our community, like Vaughn Ripley, for example. I mean, the dude's insane. I mean, he's constantly doing things, all kinds of fun things, and he's just weightlifting, but then he's got the struggle too of his hemophilia as well.
Right.
But physical activity, for me, and I'll speak from my preference, and maybe you can speak from yours. Every once in a while, we have neighbors across the street that have a pool, and I have free access to their pool. So I will go over to their pool and I will do underwater jogs. And I'll do that for about 20 minutes, just kicking my knees up because of the anti-gravity, my body and my weight and buoyancy and all that stuff. I can get under there and I can really do those those calf exercises I can do without really stressing that knee a lot. So you have that weightlessness under the water that kind of helps me. So for me, I can't jog. I physically cannot run 4 steps in running, and I will break out into a massive bleed you've not seen before. So I can't run or jog. I can't bike because when I'm pushing that joint and grinding those bones that's already on a damaged joint, not good, not good. So, things like maybe shooting a basketball or throwing a football or something, I can do that in limitations. But when it comes down to it, aquatic therapy is really, for me, the only thing I can do in terms of physicality. But on top of that, I do an extraneous amount of walking. So I'm blessed to live in Orlando, Florida, which is, my wife and I were theme park goers. So we go to the theme park all the time. So on any given day, on a Saturday, I'll walk at least 5 or 6 miles. And right there, not only am I burning calories and getting my heart rate up, getting a good sweat going on. Florida, I'm sure you miss sweating in Florida, don't you, Ryan?
No.
No, says Ryan quickly. But
I miss my pool, but I don't miss the humidity.
But the aquatics for me is definitely my go-to style of physical. That and walking. I love to walk. So what about you? Is there any kind of activities that you do or things?
Well, we have an 80-pound brown hairy child. That's our daughter, Lucy.
Lucy.
Who's a Rhodesian Ridgeback mix. She's our 9th rescue over the past 21 years together.
Nice.
But, we live in the city. We live in a historic district. So think New York brownstones. That's kind of our neighborhood. And so I will go out with her, even if I'm using my rolling walker or my cane. Her and I go out 3 or 4 times a day and walk the block.
Nice.
When the weather's nicer here in Buffalo, which we do, despite everyone's belief that it's only snow here all the time, we do have really gorgeous spring, summer, and falls. So when the weather's fair and there's no ice or snow out, I do walk with her. We go to the park. And I just kind of, like you said, I do the best that I'm able to do that my body will allow. I also got into yoga a few years ago, and I had to kind of make my own yoga poses because my joints will not move physically the way that they need to do certain poses. So rather than not do it at all, I just modified the poses myself.
Smart.
So that's been not only very physically helpful, but it's also been mentally, emotionally helpful because you can kind of do that mind-body exercise. And something I'm getting ready to try is acupuncture.
Really?
I've never been to an acupuncturist, but
Neither have I.
I kind of reached out, and several people have used it both inside and outside the community, and they found that it really was helpful. So I've got that coming up at the end of the month. And I also looked into a chiropractor. I spoke with my hematologist about whether that was something that I could do given my history. And basically they gave me the green light and said, you won't know till you try, but we don't have a problem as long as they do, not hard manual manipulation of things, but if they go easy, and you should get some relief, and just make sure that you do your factor, schedule it with your prophy day so that you're factored up to 100%. Right.
Have you ever have you ever had like a Swedish massage where they just gently go over your body, your back and your muscles?
Yes, and the massage therapist did too much, and I ended up with a bleed that went from my neck all the way to my butt.
Dang.
All those muscles down my back ended up with a major bleed because they went very deep tissue, and I didn't know any better, and he didn't know any better, and this was back in the 90s, before I really took control of my health and my hemophilia. So lesson learned there. But I had a massage last week, and I had been in such neck and back pain before. It hasn't hurt since. Yeah. So I'm going back next week.
We have one more thing to talk about before we open up the seats, and that is the holistic approach. Yes. And we're talking about Florida legislature back in 2017 of December, right after the election, made it a mandate for medical cannabis to now be used in the state of Florida. And so as of January 2018, I was able to get on my card and get pretty quickly, within a matter of a month or so, get my medical cannabis card here in the state of Florida. And so every morning I start my day with this mixture here. This is a tincture drop. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's THC and CBD. And so it's basically, I'll give you it's 1-to-1 means it's right down the middle. So it's 1% THC, 1% CBD. So I get a nice balance of both. I don't get, I just took it. Can you tell I just took it like an hour ago? You can't.
No.
And so it's really cool. It helps me out. And then at night, I do what's called a vape. It's basically this solution here. And this is, if you're familiar with any of the medical cannabis, there's two different kinds of flower. There's indica and sativa. Now, if you're new to this, I'll break it down for you, give you a quick thing, and then we'll move on. Indica is more of a relaxing, calming plant. Sativa sparks your brain to be creative. So if you're wanting to write an amazing piece of music, use sativa. If you're wanting to chill and go to bed, take indica, if that makes sense. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this helps me at night, along with the Percocet, to go to sleep, and I just dripped right off, and I have no problems whatsoever. 2 puffs. Again, it's all on advocacy and moderation of the patient to be able to be taking it as prescribed. Yes, I can do this whole thing in one day and probably not move for the rest of the month, and we would have a lot of problems, and I'd have to go through a lot of Doritos. But having said that, so have you tried any of the holistic approach to chronic pain management?
Well, I haven't, other than what I'm trying now as far as alternative therapies. And the reason being, for me, New York does have the ability to get medical marijuana and cannabis. However, for me, it's cost prohibitive. It's 100% out of pocket.
It is. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm on full disability and Medicare, and so none of that's covered. So, but they're about to pass legislation, if it goes through, to have it made recreational marijuana as well. So that would open it up to, even though it's still going to be out of pocket, you still have, that's just another avenue that someone like us could take. So I have not tried that, other than looking into the research, but physically I haven't tried it. Really
briefly though, and then we're going to open up the seats and allow people to come in and ask questions about how we treat chronic pain. You talked briefly about the expensive cost of medical cannabis, and I want to give you right off the top what the Florida prices are. So even to see a doctor, you can go and get an appointment anywhere, anytime with one of the physicians here in Florida. And there's only a select number of anesthesiologists who've taken the curriculum and can prescribe those kinds of drugs. It's $200 for 7 months to see that doctor. That's out of pocket, not insurance. To go, all right, so it's $75 a year to renew your card for the state of Florida. So right there, you're at $275. Then to go to the dispensary for a month's supply is another $75, depending on if you need an additional, like if you need a new vape or you need some new tincture drops or whatever. So you're looking easily at like $400 right out of the pocket just to get that. It's crazy.
Well, exactly. And that's why it's been cost prohibitive for me. So,
yeah. So, you have anything else on holistic?
No, that's all that I've tried. I mean, I take supplements for things that affect the psoriatic and rheumatoid arthritis, but nothing related to the hemophilia. That was going to be my next step as far as, trying things to see if we can maybe cut down on the opioids or eliminate them. But honestly, I've been on it so long that I found what works for me, and, I'm open to new things, but that's all I've tried. So,
well, I just opened up the seats. So if you guys have any questions or want to share anything from your perspective on living with chronic pain, you're more than welcome to hop in and do that and talk to us here in real time. Again, I want to say, if you're watching this stream on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, you can come over here to getvocal.com. That's GETVOKL.com. And you can join us and actually interact with us here in real time. You'll see this scrolling on the front page of getvocal.com, and you can come and join us right here. But I did open up the seats. If you guys want to hop in, you're more than welcome to do so. I saw we have a few people come in here right at the last minute. We've got Roxanne, Seawill, we got Big Bad Brad, we got Leland, Ellis, Lindsay Badger, and we've got Gabe Salcido. And so all the guys are hanging out here over on the Get Vocal platform. So I don't know why, but the notification was just pushed out that I went live on Get Vocal. What in the world? There's a 55 minutes late on that one, I think. But so if anybody wants to hop in, you're more than welcome to do so. And while somebody's in the valley of decision trying to figure that out, one thing we didn't talk about: bullying.
Yes.
You want do you want me to go or do you want to go? Oh, we got one coming in here.
Oops, wrong one. I got my wrong cast
yeah.
there. Hold on.
What are you doing?
I wasn't trying to brand myself. Seriously, that was a mistake. I had the other software driver.
Sure, it was. Whatever. Whatever.
Sorry.
Yeah, you get out of here. All right, come back in, Leland, when you get yourself rebranded. But
you can go ahead and start.
No, I was just going to say
about bullying.
Yeah, it was really hard for me growing up in that environment because with the bad knee, I limped. I was definitely the weakest one in the crowd. And Leland, come back in here when you get your stuff. I want to hear from you. But man, I'll share one story. I'll share one story about bullying and how traumatic it was for me. Okay. So it was in high school. I think I was in 9th grade. So I was a sophomore. And sometimes I would go to my locker because the first period of classes were heavy books, like, your history and your mathematics. So I would go to my locker and get rid of them because it was really heavy for me to pack. And a lot of times the jocks would meet me at my locker and they would slam the locker door and then they would kick the books out of my hand. Yep. And so then my books would go flying down the hallway. And here's the crazy part. And I'm just being real and transparent here, guys. When I went over and bent over to pick my books up, they would kick me in the butt face down into the concrete. Mm-hmm. And that's the extreme area of how I got bullied when I was a kid. I mean, that was one of the extremes. And to this day, I got a little scar right here, right between my eyes, when my forehead hit the concrete.
Nice. I got bullied a little when I was in high school. Well, actually, it was my junior high school years.
Well, we're not talking about bullying. We're talking about chronic pain.
No, I get it. So, yeah. You say what you're saying, it kind of can develop emotionally, too. Chronic pain can. But I feel you. The reason I stepped in, and I missed the show, and I apologize, Joe. I've been wanting to catch one of these each time you come out here because you do such a wonderful job. I suffer from serious chronic back pain, for one, and shoulder pain from a separation that took place 20 years ago that has never, ever gone away. It's ripped through a lot of tissue. My bursa is destroyed. So it's just one of those things you deal with. But I've gone natural. I've gotten away from all the RX medications. I'm not on any opiates or any of that. I do use medical marijuana as my choice for a pain reliever, and it works really well. I use not the CBD product so much as actually the THC product because I use the oils, and I use those as a means to vaporize. So I use one of these.
Yeah, I use a tincture.
Same process.
And then I've got the vape.
Yep, so, the vape is the way to go, I think, right now. And I wanted to try some of the new higher grade CBDs, so that's something I'm really digging into right now.
And you don't get all the harmful byproducts that when you actually smoke the flower, you don't get all of that chemical in your lung. No. You're actually just getting the pure concentrate.
Yes.
Which is a lot better.
That's what I go for.
So you've dealt with shoulder pain for how long, Leland?
Since 2000. It was actually 1999.
So 20 years.
20 years of just. I got a question for you though. Can you, when you're laying in bed, can you lay on that joint?
I have to actually sleep on the couch. My wife sleeps in the bed. I sleep sideways at an angle in an L formation because I can't lay flat. If I try to lay flat, I can't sleep at all. So something we're working on getting the what do they call that big fancy air lift up mattress there, the air number bed. Once we get one of those, I should be okay, but it's tough, dude. It really is.
That will definitely help you.
It will. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you found a method and a medium in which you can help control that level of pain. And has there been any moments in your life, Leland, when you're having a bad episode that you feel a lot of anxious and anxiety? And if so, what do you do to help alleviate that? I mean, I know medical cannabis is a thing.
It can relieve some, but it can also bring it on. So it depends on your mood, I think, itself. My wife's trying to get me to meditate more, which I really should. I do exercise. I go out to the gym. We try to get to the gym. Our schedule is supposed to be 3 days a week. It's not working out that way right now, but we're trying.
Yeah.
So we're hoping over the next course of we were buried in snow for the last hour. We didn't like to drive out to the gym. So now that spring's here, we'll be out walking the dog and trying to just relieve some of that stress physically, and the emotional stress that comes with it, you have to discuss with others. I mean, you can't hold on to all that stuff. Right. You may be in pain. But the more you tell yourself you're in pain, you'll actually feel more of it. So you kind of need to distract your senses and go places and do things and keep your mind on other aspects of your life and keep those joints moving. It's one thing if you have like an arthritic condition, which I have now on this shoulder for sure, to keep it moving is the best thing you can do.
We talked about that. You know, sometimes if you're a hemophiliac and you've got damaged joints like I do, I mean, if you're just joining the stream, you missed the first part of it. We've been going on for over an hour now, but with somebody like my case, I can't jog or run or play basketball or do those kinds of things. I just can't do it. So I was discussing earlier, you know, aquatic therapy, things like that, and walking. Where I'm blessed to live in Orlando, where I can go to the theme parks on a regular basis. So a lot of walking is involved. Just want to give a big shout out right quick to Alexander Riesenkampf and Gisela Walter, who just joined us on the Get Vocal team. So for meditations, try a cool application called Insight Timer. Very cool. Thanks, C. Will, for the drop there. That's Insight Timer.
I'm going to look into that.
INSITE. Insight. Thanks, C. Will.
Insight.
All right.
Very cool.
Does anybody else want to hop in and share briefly about their journey with chronic pain and what they do and stuff? Take care, Leland. Be blessed, man.
Keep doing what you're doing. Nice to see you as well, Ryan. So take care. Have a great day.
Nice to meet you. Take care.
All right.
You too.
Leland is the reason I'm on this platform. True story.
Awesome.
He's an awesome cat. So if anybody else want to hop in, you're more than welcome to do so if you have any questions. If not, we're going to wrap things up here and get the show closed out and get on with our afternoon. You got any plans this afternoon, Ryan?
Laundry.
Nice.
Nothing exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, no, I'm partially joking. One of the other distraction things that I do is I read a lot. I'm a prolific reader. I can go through a book in a day or two, depending on if it's interesting, and if it's not so interesting, I may drag it out. But I always have a book around, so I've got quite a. Well,
what is in your hand right now? What are you reading?
I'm gonna mispronounce it, but the memoir by Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the way to say his name.
Buttigieg.
Pete.
Yeah.
Buttigieg, but
yeah,
I just got that, so that's what I'm going to be starting to read today.
Nice.
I just finished Michelle Obama's Becoming book yesterday.
How was that? I heard that was really good.
It was
nice.
It was very enjoyable read and nice to learn about her life and very inspiring.
Very cool.
Very inspiring.
Well, we've officially reached the 1 hour mark. I want to say a huge thank you to all the amazing people that hopped in here today to listen. I don't know if you noticed, but if you're on the mobile app, Ryan, if you swipe to the right or swipe to the left, you can see the chat and the friend list is who's in here. So you can see the chat room and what they're talking about. And I should have told you that early on. I'm sorry. That's a breakdown.
That's all right.
But
you'll just have to have me on again.
Exactly. I think you're a shoe in for the next one too, because I think we're going to be talking about some pretty cool topics as well. I've got in the back of my mind, I got a bunch of these lined out, so I just got to make them. But is there anything that you want to close with? How can people reach you? How can people find you if they want to just send you a message or drop you something or anything? You want to close with anything?
Well, I'm on Twitter. I have several Twitter accounts, but the one that I just started for my personal non-everything posts is at Ryan L. Seeley. So it's RYAN, L as in Larry, S as in Sam, L as in Larry, EY. And I'm on Instagram. So if you like food and dog pics, you can find me there. And I'm at the Flamingo Guy. Flamingos are my spirit animal. So, born to stand out, majestically awkward, all of those things. So, so that's pretty much how you can find me these days.
Nice. Well, Ryan, from me, man, thank you so much for spending this hour with me and just being able to just talk about things that you and I go through on a daily basis. And I think it's
my
really
pleasure.
Cool. I think it's
I'm
really
very
cool.
Honored to have been asked.
It's been far too long, Ryan. We need to do this more often, man.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. You have yourself a blessed day. I'm going to wrap this thing up, and I want to say a huge thank you to all of my amazing friends and faithful live streamers who have come out here today. And, when we do this, we want to encourage others, and we want to be able to create a way for us to be able to share what we go through. And that's one of the whole reasons why Get Vocal is here. As people like myself, we have a platform, we have a voice, we have a medium. And so if you have something that you're going through, be real and be transparent. Get on here and share and do exactly what we're doing. We're just having a conversation. There's nothing fancy about it, and anybody can do it. So get on here and share, and that I empower you. There is so much amazing feelings and emotions that come with sharing your story, because your story is your story. Nobody else in the world has it. So nobody else will know it unless you share it, if you're willing and able. So you can find me all over the interwebs. I am all over the place. You can find me at Joseph Burke Arts. That's JOSEPHBURKEARTS. And then I do an advocacy stream at I Strive, the number 2, Thrive. So at I Strive to Thrive. And I want to give, again, a special shout out to Miss Stacy Bryuka, Lindsay Badger, Cliff Bodenweiser, Ryan Seeley, Alexander Riesenkopf, Gisela Walter, Alexander Duarte, and Lokesh, and all the amazing support and friendships from my team and friends here at Get Vocal. Remember, you are not defined by your illness, okay? You're not limited by the words or the things that people already have predetermined for you. Never let anyone categorize or group you into a stereotype. Illness isn't a burden if you think about it from a different perspective. Now, your trials do not own you. Your trials define you. And I know my life is being refined constantly through all the trials and circumstances and each situation that comes up, and all for the better, to be honest with you. So with that said, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for downloading. And we will see you next time right here on I Strive to Thrive's Health Stream.